Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
With Tech to the VO stars. George Whittam, founder of Source Elements. Robert Marshall, international audio engineer. Darren Robbo Robertson and Global Voice. Andrew Peters, thanks to Tribooth. Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Source Elements. George the Tech Whittam. And Robbo and AP's international demos. To find out more about us, check theproaudiosuite.com.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And don't forget the code TRIPAP200. That will give you $200 off your Tribooth. Now, I've been playing around with the proximity effect of the 41.6, the legendary 41.6. And I've never really set it up to shoot straight down the barrel.
So what's your default What's your default placement?
Usually slightly off to the side.
Okay, so still relatively level, but just pointing at you a little bit off to the side.
Bit to the chin.
Yeah, and I'm pointing down. So pointing down, but slightly to the side.
Got it.
This way is still pointing down, targeting the mouth, but going straight at it. And I did one read like that, then I followed it up with one slightly to the side, and then I followed that up with an 818. But I couldn't. I know we've talked about the proximity effect of the 41.6, but I actually couldn't believe the difference. It shocked me that it was so bright, and it's how I remember the 41.6 sounding.
Well, so what you're saying is like you kind of detuned the mic. You detuned it to calm down what makes the mic so aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
By using that placement.
Yeah. Well,
and then when I put it back, it was like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's what that mic
Well, it's interesting because there's a guy who AP and I know who and have both worked with, a guy called Steve Britton, who's sort of the big ballsy, rock and roll voiceover guy. And he actually uses it to his advantage because he's not so hyped. His natural voice is not so sort of steeped in those sort of high mids and highs that. So he actually gets right up on it. I mean, the best way I can describe it is he pretty much swallows the thing when he does a voiceover, and uses it to his advantage because it sort of obviously accentuates that part of his voice that isn't really there naturally. The only deficit is that from an engineer's point of view, that as soon as you touch anything in the highs, it just blows up. You've got to be so careful around up there with him when you're sort of mixing him. But Well,
the strange thing about his voice is you think you're going to have to play with all the lows because it's such a big, deep voice. But as soon as you touch anything, the highs just go mental.
Well, yeah, and that's the way you've got to work with Steve's voice. Is rather than sort of additive EQ, it's subtractive. You've really just got to sort of balance it by taking away some of that deeper stuff that's there in bucket loads and just leave the top alone. Otherwise it will just destroy itself. And you've got, I've seen people with 3 DSs on a track trying to get rid of it once they've started, sort of trying to get that typical radio cut through, which is the biggest mistake. And as soon as you say, start again, but don't touch the highs, just, cut some lows, they go, okay.
So my question is, with the 41.6, it was the guy who was the voice of the Love Boat. Was he the first guy to use the 41.6 for
Ernie
promos?
Anderson. I don't know if he was the first, but he was certainly the most well-known for it.
I thought Don LaFontaine made it really popular.
Well, Ernie is the one who's caught on camera using that mic on video and other things where he's in the studio at ABC and he's literally doing promo, And
I got to imagine someone just did it because, like, here's a mic. Ugh, it's the one that the freaking news guy uses, but here you go. Say the words.
The story I heard was not like, I think he was a bit paranoid and he didn't like being in the booth because he thought people were talking about him.
Right.
And so he wanted to sit out in the control area.
That's right.
And he couldn't use the normal large diaphragm.
Couldn't use a U87 out there.
Yeah.
Every damn thing.
So one of the guys on the floor came up with the idea of using the 41.6. That's what I heard.
Why don't you use this razor blade to record your voiceover?
Yeah, it was probably a 415 or whatever they had at the time.
Yeah, probably a T-powered 415 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple of those. Those sound a little bit different than the 416.
Yeah,
41.6.
A little bit more, a little bit less hyped.
More distorted.
Yeah, exactly.
So that that sound, for whatever reason, better for worse, it's become the character of what a voiceover sounds like. Like when you listen to a voice recorded with a close-up mic, I think we've gotten incredibly tuned what that sound is. It's become, what was the word you used, Robbo? Not a standard, but something else.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? I used a big word.
Printed.
Big
Benchmark.
words.
It's the benchmark.
Benchmark.
Yeah.
Kind of a benchmark, yeah. So when I've been hearing that mic with my clients and promo people for so long. So when I hear another mic right up side of it, if it's an accurate mic with very little color, such as the OC818, it sounds like this. Here's a 41.6 of Andrew, and then the 818. So this is what, this is what a non-accurate mic and then an accurate mic sounds like side by side. And then you did it in 2 different placements, right?
Yeah, I did. That was because of our discussion a couple of weeks back where we were talking about placement with the 41.6, which I thought, oh yeah, well, whatever.
Andrew, where do you like the 416?
You'd be surprised.
Where would you like that?
He's got a dark brown voice. No, he hasn't.
Well, if they say that your voice is chocolatey, you can tell them why.
Yeah, it's getting a bit messy now, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
So I always had the 41.6 sort of like facing down, but slightly to the side. So I'm sort of almost not quite side addressing, but you know what I mean. That's how I had it, and I got used to that sound. And then after our discussion, I thought, I wonder if the proximity, I wonder what it really is like. So I moved the mic and went basically pointing straight at me, but slightly downwards towards my mouth. And I couldn't believe the difference. It was just like two different mics. It was 2 different mics. And it was the old get a toothpick and stick it in your eardrum kind of, sound that you get with the 41.6.
Yeah. No, that's
which is the other reason why I think engineers like it, because you get a voice recorded on that and it's just going to cut through everything. And you don't have to do a lot more to it. It just sort of has this pre-processing that works for a lot of that in-your-face advertising.
the hamburger helper of microphones.
Yeah, it's just like in-your-face advertising, right there, done.
Here's what it sounded like. Here's the samples. I got them right here.
The Mercedes-Benz GLE SUV is the complete package. The Mercedes-Benz GLE SUV is the complete package. The Mercedes-Benz GLE SUV is the complete package.
So that's first one was straight down the barrel, second one to the side, and the third one was the 818.
And you can hear it.
818, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just gets less and less edgy, less and less in your face.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about the 416 and I guess its impact on the industry is it's been copied a few times probably, or tried to be copied. But, I mean, I'm on an NTG5 right now, and it's probably the closest, I reckon, than I've heard.
I don't know. The NTG5's got more bass. I'm on an NTG5 too. I think the NTG5 is a warmer mic.
Yes,
it does have that shotgunny in your face thing, but it's a little bit actually bigger sounding, but not. Yeah. It's not necessarily more cutty. The 416, I think the 818, you could take it and EQ it to do what the 416 does.
Oh yeah, of course.
You might pick up more room, but the 416 is just sort of like, there it is. It's gonna.
It's done for you.
Lots of cut. And,
yeah.
I mean,
you're right.
I'm so used to the way that bright condenser mic sounds that I add EQ to my own mic because I want it to sound more like that bright condenser mic sound.
Exactly.
So I'm talking into the, right now I'm talking into the Earthworks Ethos, which is a very flat mic. And if I cut my 10 kilohertz, 6 dB, shelf, basically. It's not a shelf, but it looks like one. Then it sounds like this, right? And it still sounds good. It just doesn't have that top end,
that bright
sizzle anymore.
I think the extreme difference would be go from a 416 to an SM7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the SM7 has like this mid-range thing that I've never been a big fan of. The way that sounds
for voiceover,
for voiceover.
Do you like the PL20, the RE20 better than the SM7?
Yeah, personally,
radio
I think so.
voice. Yeah,
the PL20 is the RE20 without that big basket on it, the front, right?
No, I cannot tell you the difference between them. Actually, I believe they are the exact same mic.
Okay.
Just years difference.
Oh, gotcha.
For this year to this year, they made the RE20, and then I think the PL20 was before the RE20.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, I think that as powerful and big of a mic, and no matter how much Rush Limbaugh wanted to gold plate his, I think the SM7 beat the PL20 in overall installations since the pandemic, at least. It's like, holy cow, did they get the SM7 out there on podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know who they have to thank for it, but Joe Rogan's probably high up on the list because he's been, YouTubing his podcast for quite a few years now.
I mean, there's an ad campaign that I've never seen an ad for an SM7. That's marketing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like you need it, and I didn't even tell you.
I mean, I just installed a podcast studio, and the mic was not chosen because that's the best mic. It was chosen because that mic was seen on, another podcast.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the owners
Pretty much.
don't
and the
know.
416's got that too. And so it's like, yeah, the SM7, you can abuse it, and it's going to be pretty consistent and whatever, dark and warm, and it has that thing for radio where it's not going to pick up. It's just going to seem to pick up the voice and not the other stuff, right? Like the 416's got the cut. Yeah.
The SM7, SM7B basically eat the things anyway, and they're built like a tank, which is perfect.
Yeah, you can abuse the whole mic, and
Yeah.
you won't hear. I mean, I don't know how Howard Stern gets away with like abusing his Neumann condenser the way he does, and you never hear it. Can you explain that
when
to
he
me?
talks
still-
about that one's still a mystery.
It's like it should just be like this kind of shit all over the place.
Because it's not connected. I'm sure of it.
I don't think it's connected.
It's not
Yeah, it's a
connected.
fucking prop,
It's a
isn't
prop.
it?
You
Yeah.
can't
It's a
hold those
prop,
things.
Yeah.
It's a prop.
Yeah.
now this sounds more like an SM7B, doesn't it? This has got
It does.
Yeah.
A little darker, fatter.
a
Yeah.
little bit less top end, a little bit more mid bump around 1K, couple of dB. Now it's like an SM7. I could go to the low frequency and boost up the bottom end. Now it would sound even maybe a little bit more.
So in the spirit of don't send us a processed voice, stop using 416s because they sound too processed already.
Yes.
Stop using them altogether. Right?
No.
But it's kind of weird, isn't it? We get a large diaphragm mic or something, and then we try and EQ it up to sound like a
And make it
416.
sound like a 416.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like just use the 416 and be done with it. Really.
I've caught myself doing that where somebody's like, okay, here's a sample of my 416, here's a sample of my TLM103. Can you make me a stack for each of these two mics? And I just, over the time, I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to touch the EQ at all on the 416.
Yeah. And then you're going to make their TLM 103 sound like a 416.
Well,
so
I resist,
what did you
I
accomplish?
resist the urge. I used to.
Yeah.
But I resist the urge, and now what I'm doing is I'm mostly just going to do corrective EQ.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like when there's like a harshness or nasal, some resonance in the booth, then that's it.
I think with the TLM, you could give it a little bit more of a glassy sound and not so much of an upper mid, but a way airy, high like frequency kind of airy boost.
Yeah.
And make it like nice, and it'll still have some sort of, I wouldn't call it cut, but presence literally. But it'll be different than the 416, which has that.
Yeah.
That frequency that every speaker has, right? It's like 4K, 8K, all packed in there. It's like your worst speaker on earth plays back those frequencies for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, and the 818, well, it's the polar opposite, isn't it? It's just like
I
it's
think the
natural.
818 is like the TLM. You could just give it like a glassy, airy sound. You're not cornered into the sound of the 416. Like I think the 818 could be more of a chameleon than the 416. The 416 does
absolutely.
its thing, and that is it.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
one-trick pony. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a one-trick pony, but the way you manipulate it is by placement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's became obvious. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it did sound like two different microphones just by moving it.
I mean, the first time I saw a
And
416,
two different voice actors sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah.
the first time I saw a 416 in a audiobook production facility, I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you see, that
kinda
seems
weird.
like for a long-term thing, it's like that's a harsh mic to be listening to 8 hours of the same person. You'd want
yeah.
the nice pillowy mic.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I don't
I-
know what post they were doing on the audio. I'm sure they were doing some EQ.
It's like listening to classical music on NS10s.
Yes, that's right.
I was going to say you'd be pulling the earbuds out, halfway through mowing the lawn. You'd be going, Jesus, my ears are bleeding. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Well, maybe it's good for the lawnmower. You're mowing the lawn. It's like, I can hear 4K and 8K.
Yeah, I've got earbuds in to stop going deaf, but I'm going deaf anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a little test. Tell me what this is.
The Mercedes-Benz GLE SUV is the complete package.
That is either the 416 straight on, I think, or maybe to the side.
All that was the 818 with a shelf, high shelf.
With the shelf on it. Oh.
Yeah.
It was a 8 dB shelf starting at 7K.
Wow.
That's a shitload. That's a lot of dBs.
It's so funny. I opened up the AU filter plugin, which is like a really simple 4-band EQ, and the setting I had last loaded was that's what it was. It was just like an 8 dB shelf at 7K.
Wow.
I was like, all right, let's see what that sounds like. So that's what that sounds
That's
like.
what it sounds like.
So the 416 is boost at 4K and boost at 16K.
Right, but if you ran that EQ on the 416, well, you would get this.
The Mercedes-Benz GLE.
Make it stop.
Listen to that.
then you'd be like, D416 it.
Try selling a Mercedes-Benz with that sound. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Off-brand for sure.
Yeah.
But it's weird. There's a lot of commercial work getting booked, especially female voice stuff that is really bright.
Yeah.
It is. I used to say, like a lot of the times, depending on the 414, like some females didn't work as well with the 414 because their voices were already kind of airy, and then you get that really top endy mic on it. Yeah, and it's like they overcompensate, and sometimes like a U87 worked better because it just sort of tried to pick up some of those lower mids. And
I used to recommend the Rode NTG3 all the time for women because it was a very dark, flat, and warm mic, and so it worked really to their advantage. A lot of times.
In fact, that's funny you should say that because that's the mic I got for Somerset for the NTG3 because it's not sharp and nasty.
So it's funny. When you have a good mic that gets all the information with no distortion, you can really EQ it, Yeah. And when you have a mic that is pre-filtered, pre-EQ'd, and arguably has some degree of distortion, it's much harder to correct it.
Like anything with audio, it's easy to work with a blank slate compared to trying to uncompress.
Oh boy.
It's impossible. Or un-DS.
Right.
Or un-crazy 416 EQ something. Because no matter what you do, the fix that you apply will create other harms.
Yep.
And you'll just end up with Swiss cheese in the end.
Yeah.
So these broader, flatter, big diaphragm mics, what's interesting is I think to get a really accurate voice, like I've not seen anybody try to record voice with say like a KM184. And sometimes you see a lot of the opera singers, like what's an opera singer set up? Like a nice small diaphragm away from the singer.
Yeah, distant placement.
Yeah. Distant, right? And then you get that just like, that is what it is. There's no proximity, and I'll bet you for some people's voice, maybe something like a really pure, like small diaphragm condenser would be pretty interesting. That's why I was curious about those Rode TF mics.
Yeah.
TF5.
Because those look pretty high-end small diaphragm condenser, and I bet you those would probably...
Wait, didn't one of you guys get the small diaphragm Austrian audio?
Yeah, Robert's got them.
I got the OC8. I got the OC8s. And those are good. I don't think that... I was going to say I don't think they're Shep's killers. They're closer to 184s. They're not Shep's, but they're much closer to honestly, they're much closer to 451s. Not 450. Yeah, 451s. They're a little bit less full and very good for cymbals, but not necessarily the whole. I think a really good small diaphragm mic like a Shep would be amazing on the right person's voice, but you'd have to have the right booth.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way.
You can get a Shep's headset microphone. I actually demoed it once.
Yeah.
$2,400 headset mic. It was a ultrasone headphone, $600 headphone with a Shep's capsule.
And the microphone's like a pencil. It's like a pencil tip.
Yeah, it was pretty big, actually. It had a big windscreen. It was for sportscasting. It had a big gooseneck on it, and it was like this ridiculous contraption that I was able to get a demo of one time, and I used it. It's on YouTube somewhere. $2,400 headset mic.
Sheps and B&Ks, man. Not cheap
Not
mics.
at all. No compromises.
Yeah, they are good though. Definitely. I mean, Neumann's too, but those are like Sheps doesn't even try to make a 103. They're like, you're going to make $1,000 microphone? Ha, we'll make a $7,000 microphone, you know?
Yeah.
Like our cheapest mic is $2,000.
I would love to at some point find out how the 41.6 did become so prevalent. You know, was it?
I always heard it was Don LaFontaine. I remember I was shocked when I found out, like, really, 416?
It would, just for the record, it was not the mic that was in his booth when I met him. Like, I never saw him using that booth.
The 416 was not the mic that Don LaFontaine used.
Not when I met him. I mean, I worked with him in 2005, but he'd already been recording for 20 years by that point.
Andrew, when did the 416 become all the rage? Because when I started in like 1998, it was like, you know, U87s, 414s. A couple people are using shotguns, but I'm just a like early engineer who's like, shotguns are colored. You only use them because you have to, because you have, you know, mitigating circumstances. Why would you ever use a shotgun in a perfectly clean booth? And I start working on higher end commercials, and you start finding these voice talent who are using it. And actually, come to think of it, Cutters, we had VIP 50s until like the early 2000s.
VIP 50s?
And then we got My Labs.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting mic, rectangular diaphragm.
Mm-hmm.
So the skinny side of the rectangle is supposed to give you the best of a small diaphragm mic, and the long side of the rectangle is supposed to give you the best of a large diaphragm mic.
Oh, far out.
But they were good, and I mean, we even had some voice channel go like, "What's that mic? Like, I need your setup." And one guy bought one. But by the early 2000s, we put 416s in all the booths, and eventually, that was just the mic. Like the VIP 50s got pushed to the side, and everyone who walked in just got recorded on a 416 by default. And that's by 2005. I feel like we were just all 416. So Andrew, I don't know. When do you feel like the 416 took over?
Because I was in radio until 97, so I didn't really see any commercial studios because everything was done on the radio station. So there was, from memory, I don't remember seeing any shotguns in any radio stations. It's usually SM7.
And you still don't.
True.
You still don't see shotguns in radio stations.
Well, you do here now. You do see them in the production areas. So,
really?
Yeah, absolutely. They're all 41.6s in the production areas of radio stations. So the first time I saw a 41.6 would have been probably late 90s, 97, 98, I guess.
So that's when it started taking over, in like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and then they became everywhere. And a funny story, actually, because I had to do a job when I was in LA, so I had to find a studio. So I went to LA Sound, and of course they had the 41.6 there. But I was talking to, I won't mention the person's name because he's pretty high profile and might get the shits with me. But I was talking about the 41.6 with this person and about the foamy, and he said, no one in this country would ever have the foamy on their 41.6. It just doesn't happen here. I don't know why you guys do that. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Never seen it before.
Well, usually you just put the normal, like, you know, Stedman windscreen in front of it. Not a.
Yeah, but I sent him a photograph. There's me in the booth, LA Sound, with the foamy on the 41.6. So they definitely had the foamy on.
Well, there you go. I always used the foamy. I used to. Because there's plenty of people who didn't know how to use the mic. Used to, you know,
that's true.
Get up all over it and just make it complete.
So here's a funny one. Even Harlan Hogan's VO1A was based on an older MSL model. Was it based on, or was it just an older MXL model? Like,
no one will really know except him, but they say it's a 1006 or something.
It's a 1006.
And I have two of those, and they sound amazing.
I got several 1006s.
Like a really fucking good cheap mic.
It's a U87.
Yeah, it's a really good cheap mic. I mean, it just,
It was the first $100 large diaphragm mic I bought.
For me too.
And then I had I won't say who in Australia modify one.
Yes, I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave that bit out.
Yeah.
Oh, so the Shep's headset is the HSC4VXP. That's the model number if you want to look it up. And a very unique mic. And the capsule on it is what's probably you're more interested in. And they make different versions. So they have a strong proximity compensation model. So you can get it like designed to actually compensate for proximity effect, which is interesting. Because, again, sports, they want the boom right up in front of their mouth to reject background noise.
Dude, let's start putting like parabolic mics in the booth.
I know you talked about that. That would be crazy. Well, the capsule, which is funny, I'm looking at an ad for the mic, and they don't mention the capsule, but I think I did in my video. I have a video on YouTube from years ago. If you just search for Whittam's World Episode 90 Headset Mic Roundup, you'll find this video. And I actually try out a bunch of mics.
The Kip Winger headset mic roundup.
Right. I mean, I was trying from really, really cheap, crappy stuff all the way up to the Sheps and everything.
Yeah, the stuff that like you start out with the mics that only pick up S's, right? Like,
or have no low end response. Period. They just roll off below 200 hertz or something.
If you DS them, they go silent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's just been a tradition of bad sounding headset mics for so many years.
Sure has. I mean, do you remember that Audio Technica that I was playing around with?
Is it the really cheap one?
It's like a headset mic. I think it might have been a dynamic, and it didn't even have the headset. It's just a head worn mic. Yeah, but exactly. You had to have like it didn't even have headphones.
I use those in many aerobics or fitness studios where budget was an issue because they could be destroyed, and it wasn't a huge loss. But those are classics. But Audio Technica just came up with a headset mic where they graphed basically an AT2020 capsule onto a headset. Boom. And it's like a $200 headphone with a 2020 capsule. And it's pretty freaking bad. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, again, comparing it to what else is out there, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's still...
Well, that's the reality. It's like, I mean, honestly, if someone gave me a voiceover recorder on a cell phone, I'd get it on the air.
Yeah, you'd find a way.
And I'd find a way, and I'd freaking bass synthesize some stuff and make it sound as good as it can go. And unfortunately, with a lot of clients, they're like, okay, sounds good. I understand the words. Yeah. Like, they're not, like, sounds like a commercial to me. But we know there's a huge, huge, huge difference between all that stuff. It's like I don't know. Like I still don't like it, but I've had a couple of voices now run into the tiny, basically Rode video microphone USB
the video
thing.
mic Go 2.
Yeah, it's like your pinky.
That's probably because I've recommended it to a bunch of people. You can blame me for that one.
Yeah, it's like, it's okay.
Yeah. It's $100 mic.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like you find the flaws are exposed much quicker, and the escape routes are smaller.
It's probably marginally better than the phone mic in the iPhone. Just it's a shotgun, so it's a little bit more directional.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm blown away with when you use the iPhone mic correctly, how good it actually can sound. It's crazy.
Yeah, and especially if they start putting like arrays of microphones in there and doing beamforming.
That's what they're doing. I don't know which well, they're already doing that. I mean, you don't realize it, but they are doing that. They use 3 capsules, and it's a beam.
Oh, there's a beam. The microphone in the iPhone's a beamforming.
Oh yeah, they
mic?
have been for quite a while.
No shit.
I even had an LG phone. It was like a V40 or something. It was probably 6 years ago. And I could steer the microphone pickup pattern front to back, depending on who.
Using the
I had a little slider on the screen, and I could say, make it pick up the guy in front of me, and then make it pick me up. And I could go back and forth. So that's been around in cell phones for a while. But Anyway, I had a lot of fun doing interviews with the new Rode wireless kit with the wireless ME, because they use the Rode Capture app on the phone will shoot both cameras. So I'm shooting a video of me and shooting a video of the guest, and they have a mic and I have a mic. So when I'm done, I have 2 videos and 2 audio tracks to manipulate and post. And it's amazing like how good of a production you can make from that. Really simple setup.
From like your pocket.
It's crazy. Yeah, I posted a couple interviews.
Was that the one with the woman from Heil?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is why we're all out of business.
I thought you'd actually done some noddy shots, but I didn't realise you were actually live with your bits to camera as well.
What's going on with the AI voice realm? Is that calmed down, or are people still freaking out on AI taking over?
I haven't seen much.
It seems like it's a little bit less discussed recently.
I haven't seen much at all.
What microphone do you use on an AI voice?
How many drummers does it take to change a light bulb? I'll tell you, the same number of voiceovers it takes to read a book. None. Because you just get an AI to do it.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to Tribooth and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Robbo. Got your own audio issues? Just ask Robbo.com. With tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, proaudiosuite.com.